We're dealing with Project 4 here. And remember, Project 4, the setup of how to do it is on the playlist. There are two designs as well. The designs themselves are now larger for the finish here, for the finishing projects. They are 10 inches by 10 inches, right? So how to set this up is on the playlist, how to make the measurements, how to do it, right? We're dealing with two things here, harmony and discord, right? And this is, I have some student examples here that are also highlighted on PowerPoint. Discord, those colors that create a sense of a jarring kind of feel when we look at them visually. They capture our attention in a different way. Right? We are brought into the picture because of these very intense kind of oranges here. And what really makes them vibrant, this orange, red, orange, are these kind of greens or these blues. Right? And when we think about discord, very often it's a good idea to consider what happens when we go across color wheels, right? Because those complements, they work together as complements, and depending on what we do with their intensity and their value, they can really vibrate for the eyes. We get this notion of simultaneous contrast. So if we go all the way back to Project 2 with our contrasts. Now, as you know, what you refer to here for this project from the additional materials is a handout, PDF, or a Word document actually, that has variations of color combinations that you can consider for these projects. So for discord and for harmony, right, you're going to be considering various color combinations. What you can see on both of these here, discord and harmony, are similar shapes. You have to use 3 or 4 colors again, right? And you have to use 3 or 4 shapes to make up your designs. You can see they're not the same design, but they are using the same shapes to create these designs. Here again, you can see with discord is very intense, red, oranges, and these blues and these greens that play off of that. Not everything is intense. As you can see here, the value is shifted on this color. Again, 3 or 4 colors that are used. With harmony, we're talking about here, and just some things that I think a lot of people like to lean to are when we get into analogous color schemes, colors that are close together. Could be anywhere on the color wheel. If you look here though, you have these greens, blue, and into the blue-violet that was used to make this. Because they're so close together, that provides literally this feeling of a harmonious arrangement, and it brings our attention to it in a different way. It's something we can continue to look at, maybe hold our attention a little longer, whereas when we're dealing with discord, we are getting this kind of jarring feeling, pulls us in right away, and then it forces our eyes to kind of play around with it before we pull away from it. In any case, in both designs, you're using the same shapes in different arrangements. I'll show you here, here's a harmony from another student. And these are on the PowerPoint as well. Again, this is an analogous color scheme, going from those blue-greens, which are pushed here, right? This has been tinted down, right, into the blues and the blue-violet range. And here's a top hat, a bow, and a cane. And then for the discord, wow, so you can see the shapes and the forms are blown up and made larger, and therefore it changes the arrangement of the colors. But what we can see with these violets, which again, here's the darker violet, here's this kind of magenta violet, and then these yellows, very intense, making areas where it just pops out at our eyes when we get into this discord, pushing our eye back and forth, whereas here our eye can kind of rest into this area. So how do you want to go about proceeding with this, again, you're going to pay attention to color combinations. You will have a document that will highlight the color combinations from which you can choose from, choosing 3 or 4 colors, obviously referring to your color wheels and how you can tint and tone your colors. Ten by 10s for each of them for harmony and discord. What I want to show you here are a couple of things that I like when people think about designing this is 3 or 4 objects that are very similar, right? You don't have to be able to draw these things. You could trace things or refer to things online. 3 or 4 objects that are similar. Again, what we saw before was a top hat, a bow, and a cane, as though one is going to the opera or something. And then another one here with kind of maybe elements of the beach or something, flamingos, fish, anchors. They're kind of loosely hung together there as well. Here I have things that I printed out. And a lot of people say, well, I can't draw. Again, you don't have to draw it, but you can create basic shapes. Those designs were all basic shapes. I was thinking about desk objects, scissor, ruler, and an eraser, right? And I show you this on the PowerPoint, but I'm just demonstrating it here. If you have a printer, you could cut out these shapes. Remember, I'm using the colors to create the designs anyway. And as you remember from the previous example, they don't have to all be the same shape or the same size. You can change the size. So I like to demonstrate this again, just to reiterate when people say, well, they can't draw. And I say, well, you don't have to here to make this design. I printed out some shapes, things, obviously images I found online, and I printed out the shape, the images on my printer. If you don't have a printer, again, you can just look for shapes that you like, download those images or use things from home. And you can trace around those things as well. So this gives me kind of a rough shape here of this scissor form. I don't need to cut those out. I can just draw that afterwards. So here I have scissor. I also have the scissor here. I could use the scissor, make it a large one like this. But for now, I'd like to think about how I might arrange these forms. Again, what you should be doing is taking a scrap piece of paper first and considering your design, right? What might make for an interesting design, right? Maybe the scissor with the ruler coming through like this. So a nice overlap that happens sometime. This could be my design. Maybe I have another ruler shape that's running along the edge here. Just so I have an idea what might work, right? Again, little sketches using a little bit of color to figure that out. You get, if you like that, then what you can do is use these objects, repeat these objects, of course, right? Yeah, like that, like that. This eraser I liked somewhere like this. Of course, I could make this as large as I'd like to. Or small as I'd like to. Here I could have another ruler shape that's coming off this way. So obviously, as I've decided on my design there, I've also thought about my placement of my color. And that is something that you also now, as you go along, to get to something like this, requires planning, requires figuring out the shapes and forms and where colors are going to go. Look how this light blue just pops out from this anchor and it repeats there. Right? Look how not all the colors are the same flat color. What differentiates this shape? All of a sudden this fish shape changes in value. So you get that back and forth. So everything for this project that comes into it, as we think about harmony and discord, is also thinking about how we can adjust colors for their value, right? How we can change their intensity. How we can match up colors and make choices, right, for temperature choices, cools and warms, how they can play into something that's discord design to really make our eyes with those contrasts be jarring as we look at them. And so these are things to think about as you are making your work on these two final projects. Again, you don't have to print out and trace things. You could actually use objects. I have a ruler, I have a scissor, I have an eraser that I could use, and I could use those to lay down onto my 10 by 10 and make an interesting pattern of shapes and forms, right? I can trace or draw objects. As long as you have 3 or 4 objects, remember you're using 3 or 4 colors for this project.